Mr. Who's the Boss did a great video outlining how his collection of old Samsung smartphones now has swelling batteries. He brought some really big tech YouTubers like MKBHD and Jerry Everything into his video to talk a little bit about this experience. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter for the majority of consumers, and there's more to this story that we need to know as consumers before we go ahead and just shit collectively on Samsung for having bad battery chemistry or bad devices in general. Now, before I ever got into smartphones, I was into RC cars, and with high-end RC cars, especially electric high-end RC cars, you have battery chargers and dischargers. And the point of the battery dischargers is that they're meant to discharge your batteries and get your batteries to an optimum charge level for storage. And all batteries, no matter lithium ion, nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium, lithium phosphorus, all batteries have a very delicate chemistry. And part of that delicate chemistry has to do with how much electricity they will store in that compound, whatever they're using, whether it be lithium ion, nickel cadmium, nickel metal hydride, etc. There's a very, very narrow range that these cells like to be charged to. Now, you can go above that range, but you really don't want to hold the battery at that state of fully charged or fully discharged for a prolonged period of time, because ultimately you are going to degrade, and in the case of Samsung, you are going to compromise the integrity of that battery chemistry. Now, we see that a bunch of smartphones that have been unused for a really long period of time now have swollen batteries. It's not isolated specifically to Mr. Who's the Boss. Most tech tubers are having this issue now. Samsung is probably freaking out about this, but you, the average consumer, shouldn't. Now, in the real world, most people don't hold on to their devices for a prolonged period of time like this. But if you do, you have to make sure that you have your cell phone at a medium state of charge. Now, cell phone companies are really, really good about regulating the amount of voltage that they allow into their batteries. Some companies actually have larger cells that they only charge part of the way, because if you keep your battery above like 20% charge and below 80% charge, it's going to maximize the usable health and the usable lifespan of your battery cells, so that you can have a higher capacity for a longer period of time. From the outside, as consumers, we don't know if Mr. Who's the Boss, we don't know if Jerry Everything, we don't know if any of the people coming forward talking about these issues have their devices being put into storage at a state of fully charged. That said, Samsung also isn't going to give you any kind of battery discharge feature on your device if you have your device off at a full state of charge. Exynos jokes aside, Exynos chips are pretty good now. Battery drain on them is not that bad, but in general, cell phone companies don't have any kind of safeguard if you put your phone away at 100% state of charge and you leave it untouched for a long period of time. We know that there's a certain amount of dangers, there's a certain amount of risk that goes into storing lithium-ion batteries at a high state of charge. That's why companies like DJI that make consumer-level drones that fly in the sky over people's heads, which is a relatively dangerous thing, and we're now seeing a lot more safety precautions going into drones. But this is why we see companies like DJI having an auto discharge feature on all of the batteries for all of the products that they make, because ultimately people's lives and people's safety is at risk. Recently, I had a video job that I did here in Vietnam, and I was lent a drone by the person I was shooting the video for, and I flew it, it was fine, and then I brought the drone back in, I took the battery out, and the battery that I had been flying in was a swollen battery. I asked the person if they had kept their batteries charged at a full state for storage, and they said yes. Now, although DJI's like self-discharge feature is good, repetitively storing your device at a 100% state of charge for a long period of time and negatively affect the integrity of the battery cells. So before we all want to say that what's going on with Mr. Who's the Boss, MKBHD, Jerry Everything, and all these other tech YouTubers that have a collection of smartphones that they have away in storage, As consumers, we should get the full story about whether or not these people are putting their phones away at a full state of charge, at a completely empty state of charge for a prolonged period of time, because in the real world, the way we use these devices is that we get them from the manufacturer and they usually have anywhere between 60 to 50% charge. Never ever do you get a phone out of the box and it's a 100% state of charge, because manufacturers know that storing their devices in warehouses at 100% state of charge is bad for the integrity of the battery cells in general. That said, as consumers or as like cell phone manufacturers, we should expect that the manufacturer is going to put some kind of safeguards in place so that if we do put our phones away at 100% state of charge and they are off for a prolonged period of time, that the device does have some kind of self-discharging feature. Because if we go back to use that device, it's been at 100% state of charge, now it's at a 0% state of charge, the integrity of the cells have been compromised, we go to plug it in, that's where things can get dangerous, cell phones can explode and people can get hurt. That said, it seems like there is something in the chemistry of the batteries that Samsung has chosen to use in these phones that lends themselves to expanding over time and ballooning. Whether or not it's something that they don't have in the battery chemistry because of price cutting, whether or not it's because of something else that they're adding to their battery chemistry for some other type of performance gain, we don't know. And we haven't had any kind of official word back from Samsung regarding this. That said, if you have an old Samsung phone that you have laying around and you're not using it anymore, just make sure that when you go to put it away, you have it at like a 65% charge and you will likely have nothing to worry about. I don't want to go ahead and say that everything that we see coming from tech YouTubers right now is invalid, but I would like to have some idea of how these devices are being stored, because we don't know whether or not Samsung has any kind of safeguard in place for these batteries that are being held at a high state of charge for a long period of time. Sorry for the word vomit. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and until next time, it's been Mitchell. Peace.